Hello, my name is Matthew, and I just read The Cardboard Box by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. This is part of my read along series and book club with Steve Donahue, reading murder mysteries in the month of March. And so I just read the Sherlock Holmes story, The Cardboard Box. And of all the ones that I've read so far for this month, I've read all of them, but this month I've read about a dozen. And there are some that are very well known to me. I'm very well acquainted with A Scandal in Bohemia and The Five Orange Pips in the Red-Headed League. Some were surprises that I had completely forgotten about. Others, as I was reading them, I recalled little details or episodes throughout the stories. The Cardboard Box has always been one of my favorite Sherlock Holmes short stories. They're all great. Um, there's not a bad one in the bunch. Some are better than others, and some are just my favorites. And this is one of my favorites. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One is the case um, is strange and fantastical, but there's something beautiful in its simplicity. Some of these stories recently, having a man that's murdered and a horse that goes missing, and we have to spend this time learning about horse racing and the stables and betting pools, and um, there's just a complex system that has to be put into place in order to give the case its context for Sherlock and Watson to solve it. And several of these stories, we have these huge information dumps in order to come up with just a particular set of amazing circumstances that revolve around the case. And they can get complicated, sometimes convoluted, but they are uh, really wound up um, cases. And in this one, the explanation goes on at the end when it's solved, and we hear that there was a lot of complexity and intrigue. But the premise is that there is um, a woman that lives out in the country, in the suburbs, and she receives a cardboard box in the mail, and when she opens it, there are two severed ears embedded in coarse salt. And the woman has no idea what to make of any of it. She lives a retired life. She's rather has a quiet lifestyle. Doesn't really leave the house. And then just one day she gets a box full of ears, which is just so over the top and grotesque. She calls the police. She's beside herself with these ears. And so it's just this very simple case that is fantastical and outrageous. And straight away you start reading it, and you want to know everything about this. Um, it also has one of the more memorable interactions with Sherlock and Watson. At the beginning, Watson is telling us that the story is about to start, and that Sherlock and Watson are just having a very quiet afternoon in the Baker Street apartment. Sherlock might be reading the paper, Watson is reading the paper. They're in the same quarters, not speaking. Time goes by, and Watson had been lost in thought. And a moment arrives where, in this long pause, Sherlock interjects, "Ah, yes, I quite agree with you, Dr. Watson. That was a disappointing way to settle a dispute." And Watson stirs back uh, out of his daydream, his line of thinking, and says, by God, man, this is too incredible. How on earth did you know what I was thinking? You're reading my mind. And then we get a reference to Edgar Allan Poe's short stories. We're told they were walking one day, Sherlock and Watson are walking down the street talking about Edgar Allan Poe, and a story where the detective is able to read the mind of somebody and follow their train of thought by their behavior, stumbling on the sidewalk, brushing up against some leaves, and he's able to deduce in that supernatural way exactly what was on the mind of this person. And Watson says, even in fiction, there's some element that you could pull deductions from because he was being active and moving around. I've just been sitting here silently. And then we get Sherlock saying, well, of course, it was all very simple. You were looking at this portrait, then you were looking at this portrait, and you had the paper and you put it down, and there was a slight glimmer in your eyes, so obviously you were thinking about this. And he goes on and on and on. And even at the end of it, Watson says, even this one, I can't say that it's simple and obvious after you've explained it. Sherlock says, well, I practice this all the time. The only reason I pointed out was your remark that it would be entirely impossible in reference to the Edgar Allan Poe story. Wonderful beginning. It shows just how fantastical Sherlock's ability to deduce things are. And it sets a tone of the lightheartedness and just agreeing to just let all of the disbelief go by. These are fun stories. And Lestrade contacts Sherlock and says, again, I've got this impossible case to crack. This woman got these ears. I'm at my wit's end. I don't know what to do about it. And Watson agrees to go with Sherlock down to this house by train and do a little bit of investigating. Sherlock mentions they know nothing about the case, so it's a totally blank slate. They don't have any theories. They don't have any prior evidence. They don't know anything about the case. It's just this poor woman that received 2 severed ears in the mail. And Lestrade's there. They start talking, and Sherlock wants to see the ears. He's in the house. The woman just wants everyone out. She doesn't like that her name is in the paper. She is very upset that they're keeping the ears in the house. Lestrade points out that they wanted to wait for Sherlock to get there and maybe interview her. She's adamant. There's nothing to interview. I don't know why someone mailed me these ears. But she put them in the outhouse. She said, I'm not keeping these ears in the house. And so they go off to inspect. And Sherlock picks up the parcel was a cardboard box wrapped in paper and then tied up with twine. Sherlock picks up the twine, goes, how very interesting. Look at the twine. And Lestrade goes, I noticed the twine. I saw the twine too. And he goes, well, there's something very singular about this twine. And Lestrade says, it was tarred, so it's like a waxed string, which means that it was used for sailors and sailboats and things like that. And Lestrade goes, I knew that. And then the paper, how fascinating. Look at this paper and the box. How interesting, this box. So we're learning so much. Of course, Lestrade and Watson are just seeing an average cardboard box, an average wrapping paper, average string. He says, the woman cut the string with a pair of scissors because we can see the fray marks on both of the sides, and how enlightening that is. Well, why is that enlightening? because it left the knot. We can see this very specialized knot that they used. And then Sherlock interviews the woman, and he gets into her good graces. Sherlock is shown sometimes to be manipulative, but also just very charming. He can decide very quickly by the behavior and quick interaction that he has with people, how is it best to approach them um, to get them to talk and feel comfortable and maybe give away some information that they otherwise wouldn't. And he's looking at the woman at profile, and Watson can see almost as if he's trying to read Sherlock's thoughts, the way it was at the beginning of the episode, beginning of the story. Uh, his eyes brighten up, and he pauses. He was in the middle of a sentence and just stops, and then carries on talking. And we hear about this woman's family. She has sisters, and one of the sisters is married, and there is intrigue and drama within this very quiet um, uh, family. Just very, it seems like someone that just lives a very quiet life, and of course, everyone has their own little dramas. And so they leave. Sherlock wants to stop by the sister's house that lives just down the street. She's unavailable. And when Watson and Sherlock and Watson get back with Lestrade, um, Lestrade says, have you figured anything out? Sherlock goes, I figured everything out. The whole case is solved. And, Sherlock's running around town, mailing letters off and stopping by people's houses and being amused and cheerful. And he goes, well, we have to wait a couple days for the evidence to come back in, but it's all solved. You'll get a letter in the mail. We'll have it all figured out. Lestrade, you get the impression that Lestrade's reputation is at least in part from this tense butting head relationship that he has with Sherlock, because in this case, Sherlock says, "Okay, the whole thing's solved, but don't mention me. I tend to like to have my name associated with cases that have a little difficulty, not something as simple as this." And so we know that Lestrade is going to get credit for a case that Sherlock on his own solved. You have to wonder how often that's happening for Lestrade. And then at the end of the story, when Lestrade is talking to Sherlock, he's saying we. He goes, oh yeah, we sent that letter off. And Sherlock points it out to Watson and goes, oh, I didn't. Me and Lestrade did. And then it wraps up in its usual way, where we're brought in with the mystery of a cardboard box full of ears, and what kind of story, what things can happen that would lead up to this result being at this woman's house. And the backstory is such the person that did all of this, and you when you read it, it's all detailed. It's such an overreaction. It's so outrageous and so gratuitous. This person in particular just seems like someone that was incredibly mentally unstable and should be in an asylum, locked up in a padded room, instead of a jail cell, because it's just so. It seems like the work of a sick man, deranged. This is one of my favorite Sherlock Holmes cases, short stories, that has so many moments that have been memorable to me. And you get a great case. You get great chemistry and a nice, memorable interaction with Sherlock and Watson. At the beginning, you have Lestrade's involvement, so you have this bit by bit, this building relationship that the reader has with Sherlock and Lestrade. Um, Everything getting tied up in a bow, how it's completely baffling but utterly simple to Sherlock. Just great, just great. So, the cardboard box, if you've read it, please let me know. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment if you would like, and take care.